Welcome back to the program. We've got some amazing news for today, all good news. We're going to start first with Tina Peters. Tina Peters is going to be released from prison on June 1st. Thank God, hallelujah. This woman has suffered for so long. She's been in jail, I would say, at least 2 years. They're letting her out of jail. They're commuting her sentence. And basically, because they're assholes, they want her to, quote, apologize for, taking the information or whatever, and basically making her, on the way out, admit that she's guilty of something that, of course, we know she's not. Okay? Colorado Governor commutes sentence of Tina Peters will be released June 1st. And let's see. Trump weighed in on it, of course. And free Tina is all he really said, but here it is. Tina Peters, Gold Star mother, who is sadly in poor health, was serving 9 years in a Colorado state prison after being convicted on bullshit charges of connection with efforts to preserve election system data, which she's allowed to do, following the controversial 2020 stolen election. And then it says here, Peters, who had no criminal record, committed 0 acts of violence, was railroaded by radical left prosecutors in a sham trial that exposed the weaponization of the justice system against patriotic Americans. Now, even far-left Governor Jared Polis is reportedly stepping in to commute her sentence and grant her clemency. The decision follows a previously unreleased statement in Peters' clemency application obtained by CNN from Polis's office, in which Peters acknowledged for the first time since her 2024 conviction that she, quote, made a mistake and misled Colorado election officials. She didn't make any mistakes. She knew they were stealing the election in Mesa County. Her job as the county clerk was to make sure elections had integrity under her watch and her supervision, and she did the right thing. And she knew that it was stolen, so she took the information and she held on to it. I can only hope and pray that every scumbag in Colorado that did this and perpetrated this against this poor woman ends up in prison on a criminal conspiracy for the 2020 election theft. And I hope, as I said before months ago, she's the star witness against them that puts them in prison. Police said in an interview on Friday that he was cutting Peters' prison sentence in half, reducing it to 4.5 years. He said that meant that she could be paroled within a month based on the time she has already served behind bars in Colorado's early release rules. So that's the first bit of great news. Now, we've got to get her out of jail. She needs the medical attention desperately, and we've got to get her to enjoy the remaining years of her life. What a travesty of justice. What an absolute horrific persecution of an innocent woman who never, ever did anything wrong. Nothing. All she did was being brave enough to go after the people that stole the election. And I'm just so happy and thankful that she's finally going to come home. That's really all I can say on that. So that is amazing and wonderful news to start with. Now, here's some even other great news. The Supreme Court has denied the Hail Mary that the Virginia Democrats, who gerrymandered Virginia and made it an illegal, unconstitutional map that we called out on day one, and then, of course, was shot down by the Supreme Court. And then, of course, they bitched and complained, and they said, well, now we're just going to lower the ages of all the judges and fire all the judges. But that didn't happen, and thankfully they backed away from that because that would have been challenged. They would have had to rehire those judges because that would have been unconstitutional. So they had to just realize that, hey, they did things illegally and wrong and unconstitutional. And, of course, the Virginia Supreme Court did the right thing based on that one judge from that one county that I said at the time dotted every I, crossed every T, and had the absolute greatest injunction against that illegal gerrymandering, redistricting garbage. And I was correct on that. And the thing is like when the left does it to us, These judges are not intelligent enough on the left to even write anything that's ironclad. That's why they go up to the next court and boom, they're gone. Why? Because they don't act on judicious ability. They act on feelings and emotion. And emotion and feelings are going to get you nowhere. And they're not going to be good enough to counter real law. And that's what the Republican member of that one county and that district court did. He took a look at the whole thing. He looked at the Virginia Constitution. He looked at everything they did. He saw what they were doing. He saw the gerrymandering. He saw how they were eliminating in areas that were not supposed to ever be Democrat areas because they were predominant Republican. So they got greedy and they tried to pull a fast one. They got shot down, and now the Supreme Court has said, nah, sorry, not taking the case. So now you know for 100% sure the Virginia redistricting garbage is just that. It is garbage. They're going to use the other maps. Republicans are pissed off in Virginia, and watch out for the midterms. Now, the next bit of absolutely incredible news is this. President Trump has announced a massive $1.7 billion weaponization fund for Americans targeted by the Auto Pen Department of Justice, including, you guessed it, the innocent January 6ers. They're going to get payment. They're going to get restitution for how they were treated. Listen to this. President Trump is set to launch a massive $1.7 billion compensation fund aimed at helping Americans who were targeted by the Biden Auto Pen regime's weaponized Department of Justice. According to reports from ABC News, the fund would compensate individuals who were politically targeted during the Biden years, including many during the January 6th time, the defendants, conservative activists, and other Trump allies caught in what critics have called one of the largest political persecutions in modern American history. The move is already sending shockwaves through Washington. Gee, I wonder if maybe I'll get anything. I mean, I've been censored by the Auto Pen administration. I was censored even way before that. I was censored by the Obama administration. That's how long this shit's been going on against me. Maybe I'll get something. Who knows? For years, conservatives have argued that the Biden DOJ operated with a two-tiered justice system, aggressively prosecuting Trump supporters while ignoring violent left-wing extremism and politically connected insiders. Many January 6 defendants spent months or even years tied up in court battles, facing prison sentences, financial ruin, public humiliation, and permanent damage to their reputations. Not to mention, I don't know, more than a dozen, maybe close to 15 to 16 January 6ers that took their own lives because of the treatment that they had to endure and all that bullshit. They should step up and get the most amount of money, their families. Trump allies say that the new compensation fund is about restoring justice and acknowledging the suffering many Americans had to endure during the Biden Auto Pen administration. Supporters of the plan argue that countless ordinary Americans were treated like political enemies simply for protesting, questioning, and, of course, fighting back against the 2020 stolen election. Also, being major supporters of President Trump, openly, otherwise, even financially. Conservatives across social media immediately praised the announcement as a historic step forward towards accountability and destroying the two-tier justice system. So this is wonderful news to know that these January 6ers, and not just them, the Rudy Giulianis of the world, so many other people, the Eastmans, so many of them, I can't even count how many have been, Stephen Bannon, another one. I mean, so many people have been persecuted, Peter Navarro. I mean, the list is endless, how many people have been persecuted under the Auto Pen administration. All because we dared to point out the fact that you stole your power. You're illegitimate. We knew you were illegitimate. That's why I said from the very beginning after the stolen election that I will never call him President Biden. And guess what? all these years, I have never said those words. I would always say in every single video, the illegitimately selected Biden, right? And then once we found out the auto pen did everything, I never even used his name. It was like gone from my vernacular, just completely. All I would say after that is the auto pen administration. And honestly, there should be everything that was done should be nullified. We need a nullification of those 4 years. Everything they did, every judge they appointed, every politician that ran and was in that cabinet, every single person involved in any decision making, they should be wiped from history like they never even existed. That's what we should do. And we should take all of the money and all of those things and take it off the national debt and make these scumbags pay for it for the rest of their damn lives. That's what we should do. So again, huge, huge development that I wanted everybody to know about. Now, here's some more good stuff. Longtime Democrat Rep Steve Cohn, okay, Jewish guy, total leftist dirtbag in Tennessee, has said, I'm not going to seek re-election. Oh, gee, I wonder why. Could it be because you were never elected to begin with? Because you were in a gerrymandered district that thankfully Tennessee said, I don't think so, no more? Look, I don't care if he's Jewish. I don't care if he's, quote, a member of my tribe. He's a piece of garbage. He's a leftist scumbag. And he never should have been in that position to begin with. And by the way, it was a predominantly black Memphis district. How did a white Jewish guy get in there? Did he pay people off? Did he steal his own votes? I'm sure he did. Dirtbag, right? So no more gerrymandering, no more bullshit. Tennessee's going to stay bright red. So I thought that was a really, really good one as well. And now, as I mentioned last night, very briefly though, because I didn't want to go into it too much, because when you're giving a live speech, you got to hit all your points. But I wanted to talk about this real quick, and it is South Carolina and what's happening with South Carolina. So we have rhinos in South Carolina. There are many of them, unfortunately, almost like Indiana. And they need the Indiana treatment, okay? That's what they need. Now, let me grab this the story here. Where are you, South Carolina? Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Here it is. Nope, not there. Where did it go? Damn, this news moves quick, right? It's already at the bottom of the page. Look at that. I'm doing this live. Here it is right here. So South Carolina Governor McMaster. Now let me back up. The reason that he's now calling for a special session is because the rhino establishment cucks in South Carolina said, we're not going to redistrict, just like they did in Indiana. Now imagine if Indiana would have done the right thing. You would have picked up 4 or 5 seats. Boom, just like that. We wouldn't be sitting at 16 or 17 seats right now. We'd be sitting at 20 or 21. And if South Carolina does the right thing, again, there's not as much districts, but they're going to pick up probably 2 right there alone. So South Carolina, after the outrage from conservatives and MAGA and America First, South Carolina Governor McMaster has now called an emergency special session to force a vote on the 2026 congressional map. And this move, by the way, if it is approved, would give a 7-0 GOP stronghold, and guess whose seat finally will be gone? That's right, Jim Clyburn, the old black Southern scumbag Democrat who got involved when Joe Biden lost Iowa. I don't know, what was he, 4th or 5th place? I can't remember. And then I think he was in 3rd place in New Hampshire. And then the next primary was South Carolina. And Jim Clyburn steps up and endorses Joe Biden. And the next thing you know, he wins South Carolina. And then he wins all the rest. You know, he could barely even talk even back then, right? He wins all the rest. And then they stole the election using him. So fuck you, Jim Clyburn. I hope you lose your seat. I hope we never have to see your ugly face ever again. South Carolina governor is calling for a special session in a bold power move that has rhinos scrambling and Democrats in full meltdown mode. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster has issued an executive order forcing the General Assembly back into an extra legislative session to tackle the state's budget and critically important congressional redistricting. The session kicks off Friday, May 15th. So that is today. That is wonderful to know at 11 a.m. Just days after the weak-kneed Senate Republicans blocked a clean extension and tried to kick the can down the road. Hey, maybe Brian Kemp in Georgia, you can wake up and you can call a special session and not wait until 2028 and do it now and get rid of the gerrymandered seats that is at least one, maybe two in Fulton County. You know, the county that always waits to the very end to figure out how many votes they need to steal elections like they did against Herschel Walker. Yeah, maybe you ought to call the next one, buddy. Maybe we ought to put some pressure on that idiot to get it done for 2026. Legislative session to address the state budget, blah, 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 blah. Let's see here. South Carolina State Senate has a big vote tomorrow. So this was from yesterday for today. On redistricting, I'm watching closely. This is from President Trump on Truth Social, along with all the Republicans across the country who are counting on their elected leaders to use every legal and constitutional authority that they have at their disposal to stop radical left Democrats from destroying our country, including leveling the playing field against their decades of egregious gerrymandering and census rigging. South Carolina Republicans, be bold and be courageous, just like the Republicans of the great state of Tennessee were last week. Move the U.S. House primaries to August. Leave the rest on the same schedule. Everything will be fine. Get it done. Now, that's from President Trump. Here's what I want you to do, okay? This weekend, I want you to put this everywhere. I want you to go to contactmypoliticians.com, okay? Or there's another one out there too. Contact Congress or contact my, I'm going by memory here, contactyourreps.com, I think it is, contactyourreps.com. So there's a couple of them. Find one of them. They're easy. Go to the state, find the numbers, and call every single one of the Republicans in the House and the Republicans in the Senate in South Carolina. Blow up their emails, blow up their phones, and make sure that they are going to do the right thing here. Because we have 4 to 5 rhinos in South Carolina that said, no, we're not going to do it. We don't care. For whatever reason, who knows why they're doing it. What was the reason in Indiana? We never heard, but guess what? 5 out of 7 are bye-bye, okay? So they better do this. And if they don't do this, then they're going to get the Indiana treatment. But let's motivate them over the weekend to make sure that they do this. Get this vote done. Those are my thoughts for this evening. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.